the outcast clinic. The villagers call me the shadow healer, and they only came to my clinic when their fear of death outweighed their fear of me. My name is Elara Thornwood, and I am the last practitioner of dark healing magic in the Northern Territories, an art so misunderstood, so feared, that my own family exiled me when my powers manifested at 16. Dark healing doesn't mean evil. It means I can cure what others cannot. Poison that's turned blood black, wounds that refuse to close, sickness that has roots in magic rather than nature. But people see the black smoke that rises from my hands when I work, see the way shadows gather around me when I concentrate, and they assume I'm cursed, corrupted, dangerous. They're not entirely wrong about the dangerous part. My clinic sat on the outskirts of Millhaven, a timber and stone building I claimed from abandonment and transformed into something functional, if not welcoming. The windows were small and high, designed to keep curious eyes out. The door was reinforced with iron and marked with protective sigils that would burn any supernatural creature who tried to enter without invitation. I lived alone, healed alone, would probably die alone. It was a cold autumn evening when everything changed, when 3 men arrived at my door dragging something massive wrapped in chains. I recognized 2 of them, Garrett the blacksmith and Thomas the merchant, both respectable men who'd never acknowledged my existence except across the street when they saw me coming. The 3rd man I didn't know, older, dressed in fine clothing that marked him as nobility or at least wealthy, with eyes that calculated cost and benefit with every glance. Healer Thornwood, the nobleman said, not bothering with pleasantries. We require your services. Immediately. I don't make house calls, I replied, already moving to close the door. Whatever they brought was large enough to require chains, which meant dangerous enough to refuse. Garrett's boot blocked the door. You'll make an exception, unless you want a magistrate to investigate those rumors about you stealing corpses from the cemetery for your dark rituals. My blood ran cold. I'd never stolen corpses. I wasn't a necromancer, but the accusation alone would be enough to get me burned at the stake. That's a lie. Doesn't matter if it's true, the nobleman said with a cold smile. What matters is what people believe. And right now, people are very willing to believe the worst about the shadow healer. He gestured to the chain bundle the men had dropped on my doorstep. Heal what's inside that. Keep it alive for the next 2 weeks, and we'll make sure those rumors never reach official ears. Refuse, and by tomorrow morning, you'll be in the magistrate's dungeon awaiting trial. What's in the chains? I demanded. A wolf, large, aggressive, and currently dying from silver poisoning. It needs to stay alive but contained until certain arrangements can be made. The nobleman's smile was predatory. 2 weeks, healer. That's all we need. They left before I could refuse, disappearing into the night and leaving me with a chain bundle that was definitely moving, definitely breathing, and definitely radiating the kind of supernatural energy that made my protective wards crackle with warning. I should have dragged it into the woods and left it there. Should have risked the magistrate and the false accusations rather than bring something so obviously dangerous into my home. But I'd never been good at choosing safety over curiosity. I hauled the chain bundle inside. Gods, it was heavy, easily 300 pounds, and locked my door before beginning the careful process of unwrapping what they brought me. The Poison King. The chains were excessive. Silver links, each one inscribed with binding runes, wrapped so tightly around the creature that they cut into flesh with every breath. I counted 7 layers of chain, each one secured with locks that would require specific keys to open. Whoever had imprisoned this wolf had been very, very afraid of it escaping. I cut away the outer wrappings, rough canvas soaked with blood, and something that smelled like wolfsbane extract, and finally saw what I was dealing with. A wolf. The largest I'd ever seen, easily the size of a small horse. His fur was midnight black where it wasn't matted with blood, and even unconscious and dying, he radiated power that made the air around him feel heavy, charged. But it was his condition that made me gasp. Silver poisoning. Yes, I could see where the chains had burned through fur and flesh, leaving wounds that wept with black corruption. But more than that, he'd been stabbed multiple times. The wounds were deliberately placed to cause maximum suffering without immediately fatal damage, and each one had been packed with a mixture of silver dust and poison that my dark healing senses recognized as nightshade extract laced with something else, something magical. This wasn't just an attempt to contain a dangerous animal. This was torture. I'd been a healer long enough to recognize assassination when I saw it. Someone wanted this wolf to die slowly, painfully, in a way that would look like the silver poisoning had simply overwhelmed him. What did you do to earn this? I whispered, carefully beginning to remove the chains. They resisted, the binding runes flaring with magic that tried to keep them locked. But dark healing magic specialized in breaking curses and bindings, in undoing harmful magic, so the body could recover. My hands began to glow with black smoke as I worked, dissolving the runes one by one, carefully unwrapping chains that had been deliberately wounded to cause maximum pain. The wolf's eyes opened suddenly, golden, impossibly bright, filled with intelligence that was distinctly not animal. And in those eyes, I saw recognition, understanding, and something that looked like desperate hope. You're not just a wolf, I breathed. You're a shifter, trapped in this form. The wolf's tail moved slightly, not a wag, but an acknowledgement. Yes, I'd treated werewolves before, occasionally, when their own pack healers couldn't help them, but I'd never seen one unable to shift back to human form, that required powerful magic, the kind of curse that needed a skilled witch or warlock to cast. Can you understand me? I asked. The golden eyes blinked once. Yes, you've been poisoned, stabbed. The wounds are infected with silver and nightshade extract. Without treatment, you'll be dead within hours. With treatment, I assess the damage honestly. Maybe a week if you're strong. The silver poisoning is too advanced for quick healing. I'll have to work slowly, carefully, drawing corruption out bit by bit. The wolf's eyes held mine, and I felt something pass between us. Not quite communication, but a pulse of energy that carried meaning. Please, help me. The men who brought you want you alive for 2 weeks. I don't know why, but I suspect it's not for any good reason. I began gathering my healing supplies. Clean water, bandages, the dark clay I used to draw out poison, herbs that would slow the spread of corruption. I'm gonna help you anyway. Not because they're blackmailing me, but because leaving you to die like this would make me as monstrous as they think I am. I started with the stab wounds, using my dark healing magic to purge the poison from each one. Black smoke rose from my hands as I worked, entering the wounds and emerging moments later carrying corruption with it. The wolf whimpered. The process was painful, I knew, like having fire poured through your veins, but he didn't pull away, didn't try to bite me. He trusted me, or he was too weak to resist. Either way, I worked for hours, treating wound after wound, drawing out poison and silver contamination, wrapping injuries in bandages soaked with healing compounds. By the time I finished the initial treatment, dawn was breaking. The wolf was breathing easier, but he was far from healed. The silver poisoning had spread too deep infiltrated too thoroughly. This would take days of careful work. I collapsed in a chair beside the makeshift bed I'd created for him, exhausted from the magical expenditure. "I don't even know your name," I said quietly. "Can't ask, since you can't speak. Can't shift to write it down." The wolf's golden eyes watched me steadily, and I saw something in them that made my heart skip. Not just intelligence, but authority. The kind of presence that commanded respect without needing to demand it. "You're someone important, aren't you? Someone powerful. That's why they've gone to such lengths to imprison you, to poison you, to make sure you die slowly." I leaned forward, studying the scars I could see beneath his matted fur. "And that scar on your shoulder, I've seen that mark before. In a history book about the northern kingdoms. The royal seal of the Blackwood Pack." The wolf went completely still. "Oh, gods," I whispered. "You're King Alaric, the Alpha King who disappeared 6 months ago. Everyone thinks you're dead. There are succession wars happening right now over who gets to claim your throne." I wasn't just treating a wolf. I was treating the most powerful alpha in the entire Northern Territories. And someone had poisoned him, cursed him, and left him chained in my clinic to die while they consolidated power over his kingdom. "The men who brought you," I said, understanding dawning. "They're part of the conspiracy. They want you alive for 2 weeks because that's how long it takes for the succession to be finalized. Once your brother or cousin, or whoever is plotting this takes your throne officially, they'll come back to finish you off. Make it look like the silver poisoning finally killed you." Alaric's eyes opened again, and in them I saw not just confirmation but desperate appeal. He needed more than healing. He needed time. Needed to survive long enough to break the curse, to reclaim his human form, to return to his kingdom and expose the traitors. And he needed me to help him do it. 2 weeks, I said quietly. "I'll keep you alive for 2 weeks. But not because they're blackmailing me. Because if you're really the Alpha King, then you're one of the few rulers who's been fair to humans, who's actually tried to maintain peace between our species. The Northern Territories can't afford to lose you." I stood and began preparing for the long-term care he'd need. "But understand this, I'm not your servant. I'm your healer. I'll treat you. I'll protect you from whoever's trying to kill you. But once you're healed, once you can shift back, you owe me. Not money, not favors, but truth about why you were cursed, about who betrayed you, about what's really happening in your kingdom." Alaric's tail moved again, agreement, and in his golden eyes I saw something that made my breath catch, gratitude so profound it was almost painful to witness. "Get some rest," I said gently. "The next treatment will hurt even worse than this one. You'll need your strength." I left him there in my clinic's back room, behind locked doors and protective wards, and went my own small bedroom to collapse into a few hours of exhausted sleep. I just agreed to hide and heal the missing Alpha King. If the conspirators discovered what I was doing, they'd kill us both. But for the first time in 5 years of lonely exile, I had a purpose beyond simple survival. I had someone who needed me to succeed. Part 2. The slow discovery, the healing bond. The first 3 days were brutal. Silver poisoning isn't like normal poison. You can't just purge it and move on. Silver bonds with supernatural essence at a cellular level, corrupting the very magic that gives shifters their power. Each treatment required me to painstakingly separate silver particles from Alaric's life force, drawing out the contamination bit by bit, while being careful not to damage his ability to shift once the curse was broken. The process was exhausting for both of us. I would place my hands on his wounds, let the dark healing magic flow through me and into him, and then carefully, slowly, pull the corruption out. Black smoke would rise from the contact point, carrying silver particles that would crystallize in the air before falling as harmless dust. But the pain it caused him was immense. I could see it in the way his massive body would tense, in the way his breathing would become labored, in the soft whimpers he couldn't quite suppress. "I'm sorry," I would whisper each time. "I know it hurts. But if I work faster, I'll damage your shifter essence permanently. You'd never be able to transform again." Those golden eyes would fix on mine, communicating understanding and trust that I didn't feel I'd earned. On the second day, I discovered he could move his right paw in ways that suggested deliberate communication. When I asked yes or no questions, he would tap once for yes, twice for no. "Are there more conspirators beyond the 3 men who brought you?" Tap. "Yes." "Is your brother involved?" Tap tap. "No." "Your cousin?" Tap. "Yes." "Does your pack know you're alive?" Tap tap. "No." "Do you have allies who would help if they knew?" Tap. "Yes." The picture that emerged was grim. Alaric's cousin, Lord Matthias, had orchestrated a coup. He'd use a hired witch to curse Alaric into wolf form and silence him, so he couldn't reveal the betrayal. The silver poisoning was meant to kill slowly enough that Matthias could consolidate power, eliminate Alaric's most loyal supporters, and take the throne before anyone questioned the official story of the king's death. "How did they capture you?" I asked on the 3rd day, while treating a particularly deep wound on his shoulder. Alaric couldn't answer that with simple taps, so I tried different approaches. "Was it during a battle?" Tap tap. "No." "An ambush?" Tap. "Yes." "Someone you trusted?" Long pause. Then slowly tap. "Yes." I felt my heart ache for him. Betrayal was always worse when it came from those closest to you. The scar significance. On the 4th day, while cleaning the deep scar on Alaric's shoulder, the one bearing the royal seal of the Blackwood Pack, I noticed something that made me stop mid-motion. The scar wasn't just decorative. It was magical. Embedded in the tissue were microscopic silver threads, woven in patterns that I recognized from my studies of binding magic. This wasn't a wound from battle. This was a deliberately created mark, placed there for a specific purpose. "This scar," I said, tracing it carefully with magic-enhanced sight. "It's not just a royal seal. It's a key or a lock." Alaric's entire body went tense. Tap. "Yes." "The curse that's keeping you in wolf form. It's tied to this scar, isn't it? Breaking the curse requires breaking the seal, but the seal is bound with silver magic that's currently poisoning you. If I try to break it before purging the poison..." Tap. "Yes." Understanding. "You'll die," I finished quietly. "The curse is designed to be unbreakable. Either you stay trapped as a wolf until you die from silver poisoning, or you try to break the seal and the poisoning accelerates, killing you instantly." It was brilliant in its cruelty. Whoever designed this curse had made escape impossible. Unless, what if we don't break the seal? I said slowly, an idea forming. What if we change it? Dark healing magic specializes in transformation, in taking harmful magic and repurposing it. If I can convert the silver in the seal from poison to catalyst. Alaric's eyes locked onto mine with such intensity, it felt like a physical touch. "It's dangerous," I warned. "I've never attempted anything this complex. The conversion process could fail, could make the poisoning worse, could kill you instantly. But if it works, if I can transform the seal from a lock into a key, you might be able to break the curse yourself once the silver poisoning is purged." Tap. "Definitive, absolute." "Yes." "You're trusting me with your life," I said quietly. His palm moved, but not in a tap, He reached out and carefully, gently placed it over my hand. The gesture was unmistakable. I already trust you with my life. This changes nothing. I felt something shift in that moment, not just trust, but connection, a bond forming between healer and patient that went deeper than simple professional care. I'd been alone for so long, keeping everyone at arm's length because they fear me, that I'd forgotten what it felt like to be trusted, to have someone look at me and see not a monster, but a person worthy of faith. "All right," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "We'll do this together, but it's going to take time. I need to purge at least 70% of the silver poisoning before attempting conversion. And we need to be careful. If the conspirators suspect you're recovering too quickly, they might come to finish you off early." The daily routine. Over the next week, we fell into a rhythm. Each morning, I would wake before dawn and begin the day's treatment. 2 hours of careful, painful purging of silver contamination. Then I'd clean and redress his wounds, noted with satisfaction that they were finally beginning to heal properly. During the day, while I saw what few patients dared come to the Shadow Healer's clinic, Alaric would rest in the back room. But I learned he was listening to everything, recognizing voices, remembering faces of anyone who seemed suspicious or asked too many questions about what I was keeping in the back. We communicated through taps and eventually through a more sophisticated system. I'd laid out alphabet tiles on the floor, and he could use his nose to push letters into simple words or phrases. It was slow, laborious, but it allowed for more complex communication. One evening, he spelled out, "WHYHELP? Why am I helping you?" I sat beside him, exhausted from a particularly difficult treatment. "Because you're the Alpha King and I'm a loyal subject? That's what I should say, isn't it?" Tap, tap. No, he wanted the truth. "Because I'm tired being alone," I said quietly. "Because for 5 years I've lived as an outcast, feared and avoided, healing people who can barely stand to look at me. And you look at me like I'm not a monster, like the dark smoke and the shadow magic don't make me something to fear, but simply different, special even." I laughed bitterly. Pathetic, right? The lonely healer falls to the first being who shows her basic respect. Alaric's paw pressed against my hand again, and his golden eyes held mine with an intensity that made my breath catch. In them, I saw understanding, compassion, and something else, something that looked almost like, no, I was imagining things, seeing what I wanted to see, because I've been starved for connection for so long. "Your turn," I said, deflecting. "Why aren't you fighting me more?" Most shifters hate dark healing magic. They think it corrupts the natural order. He carefully spelled, "YOUSABDME. That doesn't mean you have to trust me this completely." Another phrase, "YOUSCME. I felt tears prick at my eyes. He was right. In the same way he saw past my feared magic to the person beneath, I saw past his wolf form to the king, the leader, the man who'd earned his people's loyalty through something more than just inherited power. We saw each other, truly saw each other, and in a world where both of us have been isolated, him by conspiracy, me by fear, that recognition was more precious than gold. The nobleman's visit. On the 8th day, Garrett the blacksmith arrived with a message. The nobleman would be visiting tomorrow to inspect his investment. "He wants to make sure the wolf's still alive," Garrett said, his expression troubled. He'd been coming by more frequently, and I'd noticed he seemed increasingly uncomfortable with whatever role he played in this conspiracy. "Keep it weak looking, healer. If Lord Matthias's man thinks it's recovering too well." "I understand," I said coldly. You wanted to keep him suffering just enough to seem properly poisoned, but not enough to actually die. Convenient for everyone except the victim. Garrett flinched. I didn't know what they were planning. Not at first. I thought we were just containing a dangerous wolf. But I've heard things. Rumors about Lord Matthias claiming the throne, about Alpha Alaric's most loyal supporters disappearing. This isn't about public safety. This is treason. So, why are you still helping them? Because they have my daughter, he said quietly. She works in the capital, in the royal kitchens. Matthias's people made it very clear what would happen to her if I refused to cooperate. I understood then. Matthias hadn't just orchestrated Alaric's capture. He'd secured the cooperation of dozens of people through blackmail, threats, and strategic hostage-taking. The conspiracy ran deep. When the nobleman comes tomorrow, I said carefully, I'll make sure the king looks appropriately ill. But Garrett, when this ends, when the truth comes out, you'd better pray Alaric is a forgiving type. I know. He left, his shoulders hunched with guilt and fear. That night, I explained to Alaric what we'd need to do. I'll have to reduce your treatment temporarily. Let some of the symptoms show through, so they believe you're still dying. It will be painful, and it might slow your recovery by a day or two. Tap. Agreement. Then he spelled THNK. For what? GRITNOTEVIL. You're remarkably forgiving for someone who was betrayed and poisoned. He carefully spelled a longer message. ALLHAVRESONS. JUGACDNSNODFER. Judge actions, not fear. I repeated, is that how you ruled? With that kind of wisdom. Tap. Then, after a pause, TRID, you tried. That's more than most rulers can say. I sat beside him, gently running my fingers through his fur, checking for new injuries or signs of infection. Tomorrow will be dangerous. If the nobleman suspects you're recovering, he might decide to kill you immediately rather than wait. So we need to make this convincing. Alaric's tail moved slightly. Trust. He trusted me to keep him safe, to navigate the danger, to find a way through. I only hoped I was worthy of that trust. Part 3. The breaking point of deception. The nobleman arrived at noon, accompanied by 2 guards I didn't recognize. Up close, I could see the Blackwood Pact crest on his ring. He was clan nobility, someone with direct access to the royal court. Show me the wolf, he demanded without preamble. I led him to the back room where Alaric lay on his side, breathing shallowly, looking every inch the dying animal. I deliberately reduced his treatment that morning, allowing some of the silver poisoning symptoms to resurface. The black veins visible beneath his fur, the labored breathing, the glazed quality to his golden eyes. The nobleman circled him slowly, noting every detail. Still alive. Good. How much longer can you keep it going? 5 days. I lied. Maybe 6. The silver poisoning is too advanced. I'm slowing progression, not stopping it. Perfect. The succession ceremony is in 6 days. After that, this creature's continued existence becomes inconvenient. He pulled out a small vial filled with dark liquid. When I return in 5 days, you'll administer this. It will accelerate the poisoning, make the death appear natural. You'll be paid handsomely for your cooperation. And if I refuse? His smile was cold. Then you'll join the wolf in death, and we'll find a less principled healer. Your choice, Shadow Healer. He left the vial on my table and departed, his guards following. The moment the door closed, I grabbed the vial and examined it. Concentrated nightshade extract mixed with liquid silver and something else, probably crushed wolfsbane root. A single drop would kill even a healthy shifter within minutes. "They're not taking chances," I said to Alaric, who'd already begun recovering now that the nobleman was gone. "In 5 days, they expect both of us to be dead." He spelled, "Pelian, we accelerate your treatment. Push as hard as we can for the next 4 days to purge the remaining silver. Then, on day 5, we attempt to seal conversion before they return." I met his golden eyes. "It's risky. We might not be ready. But if we wait, we're both dead anyway." Tap. Agreement. The intensive healing. What followed were the most grueling 4 days of my life. I pushed my dark healing magic to its absolute limits, working for hours at a time with only brief breaks for food and sleep. The silver contamination fought back, resisting removal, trying to sink deeper into Alaric's system even as I purged it. But slowly, steadily, we made progress. By day 9, the black veins had faded significantly. His breathing was easier. The wounds were almost completely healed. By day 10, he could stand without trembling, could walk around the room, could stay conscious for hours instead of drifting in and out of fevered sleep. By day 11, the silver content in his blood had dropped to 30%. Still dangerous, but no longer immediately fatal. And by day 12, we were as ready as we'd ever be. "Tomorrow," I said quietly that evening, "tomorrow we attempt to seal conversion. If it works, you'll be able to break the curse yourself. If it fails—" I didn't finish the sentence. We both knew what failure meant. Alaric moved closer and did something he'd never done before. He pressed his massive head against my chest, right over my heart. It was a gesture of trust, of gratitude, of connection that transcended the healer-patient relationship. I wrapped my arms around his neck, feeling the warmth of his fur, the solid reality of his presence. For 12 days, he'd been my entire world, patient companion, the first being in years to look at me with something other than fear or disgust. "I don't want to lose you," I whispered. "I know that's selfish. I know once you're healed, once you reclaim your throne, you'll return to your world, and I'll return to mine. But these 12 days, they've meant everything to me." His golden eyes met mine, and in them I saw emotions that a wolf shouldn't be capable of expressing. Affection, gratitude, and something deeper that made my heart race. Then he carefully, deliberately, pushed his nose against my hand and spelled out a message I'd been afraid to hope for. "SDAYWITHME. After the curse breaks?" I asked, my voice trembling. "You wanted to stay with you?" Tap. Absolute definitive. "Yes, I'm human. You're the Alpha King. It wouldn't, people would." He interrupted by spelling, "Dionticieri." And in that moment, I understood. Whatever connection had formed between us over these 12 days wasn't just healer and patient. It was something deeper, something that had been building with every treatment, every conversation, every moment of shared trust. But we couldn't explore it. Not yet. Not while he was still cursed, still trapped, still in danger. "Tomorrow," I said, pulling back reluctantly, "we break the curse tomorrow. And then we'll see what happens next. The attack." I should have known they wouldn't wait. At 3 in the morning, I woke to the sound of my protective ward shattering. I'd barely thrown on a robe and grabbed my emergency supplies when my clinic door exploded inward. The nobleman stood there with 6 guards. Not the 2 from before, but trained fighters carrying silver weapons and magical containment gear. "Did you really think we wouldn't notice the wolf recovering?" he snarled. "We have spies everywhere. Healer, including the merchant who sold you supplies for purging silver poisoning. You've been working too hard, too fast, which means the wolf is nearly healed, which means it's time to cut our losses. The guards moved forward, and I saw their intent. Kill Alaric before he could recover fully, and kill me to eliminate the witness. No! I threw up my hands and released my dark healing magic, not to heal, but to harm. Black smoke exploded outward, targeting the guard's weapons, corroding silver blades, and causing magical containment gear to malfunction. Dark healing could be used offensively if you understood its true nature. It didn't just remove harmful magic, it could transfer it. The poison I'd spent 12 days purging from Alaric, I'd been storing it in crystallized form, waiting for exactly this moment. I released it all at once. The guards collapsed, their bodies overwhelmed by concentrated silver poisoning that hit their systems like a hammer. They weren't shifters, so it wouldn't kill them, but it would incapacitate them completely. The nobleman stared in shock. You're not just a healer. You're a weapon. I'm whatever I need to be to protect my patient, I said coldly. He drew his own weapon, not silver, but cold iron inscribed with nullification runes designed to shut down magic. One strike would sever my connection to my healing power, leaving me helpless. He lunged, and Alaric, who'd been lying quietly in the back room conserving strength, exploded into motion. 300 pounds of apex predator hit the nobleman from the side, sending him crashing into the wall with enough force to crack stone. The iron blade clattered away, useless. Alaric stood over the nobleman, fangs bared, a growl rumbling through his massive chest that shook the entire building. His golden eyes blazed not with animal rage, but with cold, calculated fury. "Don't," I said, moving to his side. "Don't kill him. We need him alive to testify about the conspiracy." Alaric hesitated, every muscle tense for the killing strike. Then, slowly, he stepped back, allowing the nobleman to live. But the movement cost him. I saw him stumble slightly, saw black veins reappear in his fur. The exertion had accelerated the silver poisoning that we'd worked so hard to control. "Alaric!" I caught him as he collapsed, his massive body too heavy for me to support. No, we were so close. We almost had it purged." His golden eyes met mine, and I saw acceptance there. He knew what was happening. The poisoning was spreading again, faster now, fed by the adrenaline and magic he'd expended defending me. "The seal," I said desperately. "We have to attempt a conversion now. It's the only chance." But the seal conversion required precision, time, careful magical manipulation. I'd planned to do it under controlled conditions, with Alaric at full strength. Attempting it now, while he was crashing from poison acceleration, would be incredibly dangerous. Alaric's paw touched my hand. "Tap. Yes. Do it. You could die. Tap. I know. You're choosing to risk everything. Your life, your kingdom, your chance at justice, to save the healer who couldn't keep you safe." He spelled slowly with failing strength. "YUSAVDMETWOVDAYS. MYTURN. And I realized he wasn't just talking about physical salvation. For 12 days, I'd been his companion, his connection to humanity, his reminder that he was more than just a poison wolf waiting to die. I'd save him in ways that went beyond healing magic. Now it was his turn to save me from a life of lonely exile, to give me the chance at something more than survival. "All right," I said, my hands already beginning to glow with black smoke. "Together, then, we do this together." I placed my hands on the royal seal scar, feeling the silver threads woven through his flesh, feeling the curse pulsing with malicious intent. The magic fought me, tried to reject my interference, tried to accelerate the poisoning even further. But I was the shadow healer. I'd spent 5 years perfecting dark magic that everyone else feared. I'd learned to work with corruption, to transform harmful magic into something useful. And I'd spent 12 days learning every detail of Alaric's magical signature, his essence, his very soul. I knew him, completely, intimately, in ways that went beyond physical healing. So when I reached into the seal and began the conversion, I didn't just work with magic. I worked with our connection, with the bond that had formed between healer and patient, between two isolated souls who'd found unexpected understanding in each other. The silver threads began to change. Instead of binding curse, they became conduits. Instead of poison, they became power. The seal blazed with light, not the dark smoke of my healing magic, but golden radiance that matched Alaric's eyes, and the chains of the curse shattered. The transformation. Alaric's body convulsed, magic pouring through him as the curse broke completely. The transformation from wolf to human was violent, painful, accompanied by light so bright I had to shield my eyes. When the light faded, a man knelt where the wolf had been. He was magnificent, tall, powerfully built, with black hair that fell past his shoulders and golden eyes that burned with the same intensity they'd held in wolf form. His skin bore scars from the torture he'd endured, but he was alive, breathing, finally human again after 6 months of imprisonment. And the first word he spoke, in a voice rough from disuse but carrying unmistakable authority, was my name. Elara. I felt something snap into place in my chest, not painful but profound, a connection that went deeper than a healing bond, deeper than the trust we'd built, something primal and absolute that made my soul recognize his with perfect certainty, the fated mate bond. Oh, gods! I whispered, understanding flooding through me. That's why the conversion worked. That's why I could transform the curse when no one else could. We're fated mates, Alaric finished, his golden eyes locked on mine with an intensity that stole my breath. I felt at the moment you first touched me to heal, the bond trying to form despite the curse blocking it. Every day you treated me, it grew stronger. And now, he reached for me, but stumbled, his legs unsteady after months of being unable to stand as a human. I caught him, supporting his weight, and the moment our skin touched fully, no fur, no barrier, the bond blazed alive completely. I felt him, everything he was, everything he'd experienced, everything he felt for me. The gratitude, yes, but also admiration, respect, desire, and something deeper that took my breath away. Love. He loved me, had fallen in love over 12 days of silent communication and shared trust. And I loved him back, had been falling for him slowly, refusing to acknowledge it because it seemed impossible, forbidden, destined to break my heart. The fated bond doesn't care about species, Alaric said softly, his hand cupping my face with infinite gentleness. Doesn't care about social status or political complications. It just is. You're my mate, Elara, my queen, the one the moon goddess chose for me. I'm human, I protested weakly. I'm an outcast. I practice magic your people fear. You saved my life. You risked everything to heal me. You defended me against assassins. You transformed a curse that should have been unbreakable. His thumb brushed across my cheek. And you saw me, truly saw me, when I was at my weakest, most vulnerable. That's all that matters. A groan from the nobleman interrupted the moment. He was conscious, staring at Alaric with dawning horror. Impossible, he gasped. The curse can't be broken. The witch swore. The witch didn't account for a fated mate with dark healing magic, Alaric said, his voice turning cold as he straightened to his full height, every inch the Alpha King despite being naked and recently healed. And now you're going to tell me everything. Every conspirator, every plan, every detail of how my cousin orchestrated this coup. Lord Matthias will kill me if I talk. I'll kill you if you don't. Alaric's eyes flashed with primal power that made even me step back. You poisoned your king. You tortured me for months. You threatened the woman I love. Start talking, or I'll let my wolf finish what we started. The nobleman broke, spilling everything. Matthias's network of conspirators, the hostages he'd taken to ensure cooperation, the succession ceremony planned for tomorrow, the loyal alphas who'd been imprisoned or assassinated. As he talked, I realized the scope of the betrayal was even worse than we thought. Matthias hadn't just tried to steal the throne. He'd been systematically destroying everything Alaric had built. The peace between humans and shifters, the fair laws, the reforms that had made the Northern Territories the most prosperous region in generations. We need to move, I said urgently. If the succession ceremony is tomorrow, we have less than 24 hours to reach the capital and stop it. Agreed. Alaric turned to me, and I saw both the king and the man in his expression. But first I need clothes, and you need to pack. You're coming with me. Alaric, I can't just leave. You're my fated mate. Where I go, you go. That's not negotiable. His voice softened. Besides, do you really think I'd leave you here? Matthias knows you heal me by now. This clinic will be the first place his assassins look. He was right. The moment news of Alaric's survival spread, I'd become a target. My lonely little clinic, my exile, my isolated life, none of it would protect me from a king's vengeance. What about Garrett? I asked. And the others who were blackmailed into cooperation? They'll be judged fairly, but with mercy for those who were coerced. Alaric moved to the unconscious guards, checking their conditions. Your poison will wear off in a few hours. We'll lock them in the cellar and alert the local magistrate once we're safely away. We worked quickly. I packed my essential supplies and research notes while Alaric dressed in spare clothes I'd acquire for emergencies. They were too small, stretched tight across his muscular frame, but they'd serve until we reached civilization. As dawn broke, we slipped out of the clinic and into the forest, moving fast toward the capital city 3 days' journey away. We had to reach the throne room before Matthias was crowned. We had to expose the conspiracy before the traitors consolidated their power. And we had to survive long enough to claim our future together. Part 4. The Alpha King claims his queen the desperate journey. We moved through the forest like shadows, Alaric in his wolf form for speed and stealth, me riding on his back, clean as fur as we covered ground at an impossible pace. The fated bond sang between us, allowing wordless communication. I could sense his determination, his rage at the betrayal, but also his fierce protectiveness toward me. And he could feel my fear, my exhaustion, but also my absolute resolve to see this through. We stopped only briefly to rest, and during those stops, Alaric would shift to human form, so we could plan. Matthias will have increased security at the palace, he said on the first evening, sketching a map in the dirt. He knows I might have survived. He'll be prepared for a direct assault. So we don't assault directly, I said. We infiltrate, get inside before the ceremony, gather evidence, and expose him in front of the assembled packs. Make it impossible for him to claim the throne without revealing himself as a traitor. That requires getting past his guards, his magical wards, and whatever other defenses he's established. Alaric looked at me seriously. And it puts you directly in the line of fire. I'm already in the line of fire. The moment I saved you, I chose a side. I touched his hand, feeling the mate bond pulse with warmth. Besides, I'm not helpless. I'm the shadow healer. I've got a few tricks that might surprise even a would-be king. His smile was fierce and proud. You're magnificent. You know that. I'm terrified, but I'm not running. We continued through the night, Alaric's wolf form eating up the miles. By the second day, we were close enough to the capital to start seeing increased patrols, Matthias's guards searching for any sign of the missing king. We avoided them carefully, using my dark healing magic to mask our presence and Alaric's intimate knowledge of the territory to find hidden paths. On the evening of the second day, we stopped at a small stream to rest and drink. Alaric shifted to human form, exhaustion showing his face despite his supernatural endurance. I need to tell you something, he said quietly, about what happens after we stop Matthias, about what being my fated mate means in terms of pack law. I'm human, I said. I know that complicates things. It doesn't complicate anything. He took my hands in his. According to ancient law, a fated mate bond supersedes all other considerations. Species, status, social class, none of it matters. You're my mate, which makes you my queen. But you have to willingly accept the bond. I can't force you into this life. Being queen means living in the palace, dealing with pack politics, being constantly surrounded by people who might fear your magic or resent your human heritage. It means giving up your independence, your quiet life, your freedom to be alone. He met my eyes. I want you by my side more than I've ever wanted anything. But I won't trap you. If you want to walk away after we stop Matthias, if you want to return to your clinic in your exile, I'll let you go. I'll protect you from a distance, make sure you're safe and provided for, but I won't force you to be my queen. I looked at this man, this king, who'd spent 12 days unable to speak, but communicating more honestly than most people manage in a lifetime, who trusted me with his life, his secrets, his vulnerability, who was offering me a crown but making it clear the choice was mine. I've been alone for 5 years, I said quietly. Exiled, feared, living half a life because people couldn't see past my magic to the person beneath. And then you came into my clinic, poisoned and chained, and you saw me, really saw me. You trusted me. You made me feel like I mattered, like my magic was a gift instead of a curse. I squeezed his hands. I don't want to go back to that lonely clinic. I don't want to spend the rest of my life hiding from a world that fears me. I want to stand beside you. I want to be your queen, your mate, your partner. Not because the bond demands it, but because I choose it. I choose you. The relief and joy in his eyes was worth every risk, every danger we'd faced. He kissed me then, finally after days of holding back, and the mate bond flared so bright I felt like a physical warmth spreading through my entire body. This wasn't just attraction or gratitude or shared trauma. This was recognition at the deepest level. Two souls that belonged together, finally coming home. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, Alaric rested his forehead against mine. After we reclaim my throne, after we expose the traitors and restore order, I'm going to marry you properly, with witnesses and ceremonies and all the formal recognition you deserve. But in my heart, in every way that matters, you're already my queen. And you're my king, I whispered, now and always. We stayed there by the stream for another hour, stealing moments of peace before the coming storm. Tomorrow, we'd reach the capital. Tomorrow, we'd face Matthias and his conspirators. Tomorrow, we'd either reclaim the throne or die trying. But tonight, we had each other. And that was enough. The infiltration. We reached the capital at dawn on the third day, the day of the succession ceremony. The city was decorated for celebration, banners flying from every building. Crowds gathered in the streets to witness the coronation of their new king. But there was an undercurrent of unease, of whispered doubts about the official story of King Alaric's death. Many still hoped he was alive somewhere, waiting to return. The ceremony begins at noon, Alaric said as we observed from the shadows of an alley. We have 4 hours to get inside the palace, gather proof of the conspiracy, and present it before Matthias can take the throne. The main gates will be heavily guarded. I noted, but you said there were secret passages? Several, including one that leads directly to the throne room. He pointed to a building that looked like an old warehouse that used to be part of the original palace. There's a tunnel beneath it that the royal family used for emergencies. We made our way carefully through the city, avoiding main streets, staying in the shadows. My dark healing magic helped. I could sense and avoid the guards' patrol patterns, could detect magical wards before we triggered them. The warehouse was abandoned, exactly as Alaric remembered. We found the hidden entrance behind a false wall and descended into darkness, following a narrow tunnel that smelled of earth and old stone. This passage was built by my great-grandfather. Alaric explained as we moved through the darkness, his wolf vision guiding us both. He was paranoid about sieges and insisted on multiple escape routes. I used to explore them as a child, much to my mother's dismay. We emerged in a wine cellar beneath the palace, right where Alaric had promised. From there, we navigated through servant passages and hidden corridors, making our way toward the royal archives where Matthias would have needed to store evidence of his false succession documents. We found more than documents. In a locked room, we discovered letters between Matthias and the witch who cursed Alaric, detailing the entire conspiracy. Receipts for bribes paid to corrupt officials, orders for the assassination of loyal alphas, and most damning, a contract with foreign power promising them access to the northern territories in exchange for magical support in the coup. Matthias hadn't just betrayed his king. He'd betrayed the entire kingdom. "This is enough," I said, gathering the documents. "This will destroy him completely." "Good." Alaric's eyes blazed with cold fury. "He deserves nothing less." The confrontation. We made our way to the throne room, timing our arrival for the moment just before the coronation was to begin. The great hall was packed with nobility from every pack in the northern territories, all dressed in their finest, all gathered to witness history. At the front, Matthias stood beside the throne, looking regal in royal robes, his expression confident. He thought he'd won, thought Alaric was dead, thought his secrets were safe, thought he was a moment away from claiming everything he'd ever wanted. He was wrong. Alaric and I entered through the side door, unnoticed at first in the crowd. But as we moved forward, as people recognized their supposedly dead king, gasps and whispers spread like wildfire. Matthias saw us. His face went from confident to shocked to terrified in the span of a heartbeat. "Impossible," he breathed. "You're supposed to be dead." "I was supposed to be a lot of things," Alaric said, his voice carrying through the throne room with undeniable authority. "Dead. Forgotten. Replaced. But you made one critical mistake. Cousin, you underestimated the healer you hired to keep me alive." All eyes turned to me, and I felt the weight of their stares. Curiosity, suspicion, fear of my dark magic. But I stood tall, refusing to hide. This woman saved my life. Alaric continued. Broke the curse you paid a witch to cast. Purged the silver poisoning you used to torture me. And helped me uncover your entire conspiracy. I stepped forward and spread the documents across a nearby table where all could see. Letters proving Lord Matthias hired a dark witch to curse the king. Receipts for bribes. Orders for assassinations. And a contract with the Silver Crest Empire promising them territorial access in exchange for magical support. The throne room erupted in outrage. Alphas surged forward to see the evidence, their expressions turning from shock to fury as they recognized seals, signatures, and details that couldn't be faked. Matthias tried to defend himself, tried to claim the documents were forgeries. But too many people recognized his handwriting, his seal, his signature on the damning evidence. You betrayed your king, Alpha Marcus of the Northern Pack said, his voice shaking with rage. You cursed him, poisoned him, tried to murder him, and you would have sold our kingdom to foreign powers. There's only one punishment for treason of this magnitude. The assembled alphas began to close in on Matthias, their wolves rising to surface, ready to tear him apart for his crimes. But Alaric held up a hand. No, he'll face justice, but not mob justice. He'll stand trial, be judged properly, and then punished according to our laws. I won't let his treachery turn us into animals. It was a perfect statement, showing strength without cruelty, justice without vengeance, reminding everyone why Alaric had been such a good king in the first place. Guards loyal to the true king stepped forward and seized Matthias, dragging him away as he screamed protests and threats that no one believed anymore. The throne room fell silent as Alaric moved to stand before his throne. He didn't sit immediately. Instead, he turned to address the assembled nobility. 6 months ago, I was betrayed by someone I trusted, cursed, poisoned, left to die in a healer's clinic, while traitors tried to steal my kingdom. His voice was steady, powerful. But I survived, and I survived because of this woman, Elara Thornwood, the shadow healer who risked everything to save a dying wolf, not knowing who or what he was. He reached for me, pulling me forward to stand beside him. She broke a curse that should have been unbreakable. She purged poison that should have been fatal. She defended me against assassins and infiltrated this palace to help me reclaim my throne. And in the process, we discovered something that makes her presence here not just justified, but essential. He turned to me, his golden eyes full of warmth and pride. Elara Thornwood is my fated mate, the one the moon goddess chose for me. And by the ancient laws that govern our kind, that makes her my queen. The throne room erupted again, this time in shocked murmurs. A human queen was unprecedented, controversial, potentially explosive politically. But before the descent could build, Alpha Marcus stepped forward. The fated bond is sacred. It supersedes all other laws, all other considerations. If the moon goddess chose this healer for our king, then we have no right to question it. One by one, the other alphas nodded or voiced agreement, whatever personal reservations they might have had. The fated bond was too sacred to challenge openly. Alaric looked at me, silently asking permission, making sure I was ready for what came next. I nodded. I'd chosen this path. I'd chosen him. And I wouldn't back down now. He sat on his throne, reclaimed at last, and gestured for me to sit beside him in the queen's throne that had been empty since his mother's death a decade ago. As I sat, as I took my place beside the Alpha King, I felt the weight of destiny settling onto my shoulders. This wasn't the life I'd imagined. It wasn't the safe, lonely existence I'd planned for myself. It was so much better. I present to you Elara Thornwood, Alaric announced to the assembled nobility. "My fated mate, my savior, and your queen. She will stand beside me as we rebuild what was nearly destroyed, as we root out the remaining traitors, and as we create a kingdom where dark healing magic is recognized as the gift it truly is, not feared as corruption." The throne room fell silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, the alphas began to kneel, acknowledging not just their king's return, but his choice of queen. And I sat beside Alaric, the feared outcast who'd spent 5 years in exile, now crowned as queen of the Northern Territories, and felt for the first time in my life like I was exactly where I belonged. The new reign 3 months later. The formal coronation happened on the first day of winter, with representatives from every pack in the kingdom and several neighboring territories in attendance. I wore a gown of midnight blue that seemed to capture shadows in its folds, a crown of silver and moonstone that Alaric had commissioned specifically for me. Not the heavy, oppressive crown of past queens, but something that acknowledged my unique nature, elegant, powerful, slightly dangerous. Perfect for the Shadow Queen, as people had begun calling me. The ceremony was beautiful, traditional, and completely overwhelming, but Alaric stood beside me through every moment, his presence a constant anchor, his hand finding mine whenever the attention became too much. When it was over, when we'd been officially presented as king and queen, when the final vows had been spoken and the final blessings pronounced, Alaric led me to the balcony overlooking the capital city. "Any regrets?" he asked quietly, as we watched the celebration spread to the streets below. "About saving a poison wolf who turned out to be a king?" I smiled. "None whatsoever." "About giving up your quiet life, your independence, your clinic where no one bothered you?" I turned to face him fully. "That wasn't a life, Alaric. It was survival, existence. This," I gestured to the celebrating city, to the palace behind us, to the future we were building together. "This is living." He pulled me close, and I felt the mate bond pulse with contentment, with rightness. "I know it hasn't been easy. The politics, the nobles who still don't trust your magic, the adjustments to palace life." "I'm learning," I interrupted, "and I have you to help me navigate it. Besides, I've started establishing healing clinics throughout the kingdom, places where dark healing magic is not just accepted but celebrated, where healers like me don't have to hide or fear persecution." "You're changing the kingdom," he said with pride, "making it better than it was even before the coup. People are starting to see dark magic differently, not as corruption, but as a tool like any other, neutral until given purpose by the wielder. It's slow progress, but it's progress." I rested my head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat, steady, strong, alive. "We have time." "We do." His arms tightened around me. "A lifetime if the moon goddess is kind. Maybe more, given that the mate bond can extend a human's lifespan when paired with a shifter. I'd learned that surprising fact a month ago, and I was still adjusting to the idea that my 30 years might stretch to 300, matching Alaric's natural shifter longevity. The thought of having centuries together was both terrifying and wonderful. "What happened to Garrett?" I asked. "And the others who were coerced into helping Matthias?" "Judged fairly, as I promised. Garrett's daughter was freed from the capital kitchens and returned to him. He was sentenced to community service, using his blacksmithing skills to repair damage the coup caused. Others received similar sentences. No executions, no lifelong imprisonment, just fair consequences that allow for redemption. And Matthias?" Alaric's expression hardened. "Stripped of his title, his lands, and his pack connections. He's been exiled to the border territories with nothing but the clothes on his back. If he survives the next year, he'll have learned what it means to live as an outcast. If he doesn't, he shrugged, nature will have delivered its own justice. It was harsh, but fair. Matthias had tried to condemn Alaric to a slow, agonizing death. Now he'd experienced what true powerlessness felt like. The witch who cursed you also judged. She claimed Matthias threatened her family, so her sentence was lessened. She's now serving the kingdom as a healer, using her magic for good under supervision. Second chances, Elara. That's what our reign will be known for. Justice tempered with mercy, strength guided by wisdom. I smiled. You're a good king, Alaric. The people are lucky to have you. They're lucky to have us, he corrected. You're not just my queen consort. You're my equal partner in ruling. Your ideas, your reforms, your compassion. Those are shaping the kingdom just as much as my laws and decisions. A servant appeared at the balcony door. Your Majesties, the final banquet is prepared. We return to the throne room where tables have been set up for the coronation feast. Hundreds of guests, hours of celebration, endless toasts and well wishes from people who'd once feared me and now address me as Your Majesty. It was surreal, wonderful, occasionally exhausting. But every time I felt overwhelmed, every time the weight of the crown felt too heavy, I'd catch Alaric's eye across the room and he'd smile. That private smile that was just for me, that reminded me we were in this together. As the feast wound down and guests began to part, Alpha Marcus approached with his Luna at his side. Your Majesties, he said formally, then smiled. I wanted to thank you personally, Queen Elara. Your healing clinics have already made a difference. My Pax healer was trained in traditional methods only. She couldn't help when my grandson fell ill with magical fever. But one of your trained dark healers saved his life. His Luna nodded, tears in her eyes. We were told dark magic was dangerous, evil. But you showed us it's just another form of healing. Our grandson is alive because you changed people's minds. After they left, after the last guest had departed and the servants had cleared the tables, Alaric and I finally returned to our private chambers. I collapsed onto the enormous bed, still not used to the luxury after years of sleeping in a narrow cot in my clinic, and kicked off the formal shoes that had been torturing my feet for hours. Coronations are exhausting, I announced. They are. Alaric sat beside me, already removing his own formal attire. But they only happen once. Tomorrow, we return to normal work. Council meetings, diplomatic correspondence, the boring administrative tasks of actually running a kingdom. Sounds perfect. And surprisingly, I meant it. I'd found purpose in helping Alaric govern, in using my unique perspective as a former outcast to advocate for those without power or voice. He lay down beside me, and I curled into his warmth, feeling the mate bond settle into contentment. I love you, he said quietly. I don't say it enough, but I do. You saved my life, broke my curse, helped me reclaim my throne. But more than that, you made me remember what it means to be human, to be vulnerable, to trust someone completely. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me. I love you too, I replied, my voice thick with emotion. You gave me a purpose. A home, a place where I'm not feared but valued. You saw past my dark magic to the person beneath, and you chose me even when it would have been politically easier to choose someone else. We lay there in comfortable silence, two people who'd found each other in the worst circumstances and built something beautiful from suffering and survival. Do you think the villagers from Millhaven know? I asked suddenly. The ones who feared me, who crossed the street to avoid me, Do they know their shadow healer is now a queen? Probably. Word spreads fast. Alaric chuckled. I imagine they're reassessing every interaction they ever had with you, wondering if they inadvertently insulted royalty. Good. Let them wonder. I felt a petty satisfaction at the thought. Maybe next time they'll think twice before treating someone as an outcast just because they're different. That's my queen, Alaric said with approval. Compassionate and merciful, but not above enjoying a bit of cosmic justice. I'm complex. You're perfect. We fell asleep like that. The feared shadow healer and the true Alpha King. Two halves of a fated bond that have been forged in poison and chains and emerged stronger than steel. The final scene. 5 years later, I stood in the same clinic room where I'd first treated a poisoned, chained wolf, now converted into a museum and memorial. The chains hung on the wall, preserved behind glass with a plaque that read, Here, the fated bond was forged between King Alaric Blackwood and Queen Elara Thornwood, proving that even the darkest magic can heal, and even the strongest chains can be broken by love. Students from the Healing Academy I had founded toured the room, listening to the guide tell the story of the Shadow Healer and the Cursed King. Queen Elara was feared for her dark healing magic. The guide explained, exiled, alone, living on the edges of society. But when a poison wolf was brought to her clinic, she didn't turn away. She risked everything to heal him, not knowing he was the missing Alpha King. A young student raised her hand. Is it true she broke an unbreakable curse? It's true. The curse was designed to be permanent. King Alaric would die as a wolf, unable to reveal his identity or reclaim his throne. But Queen Elara's dark healing magic, combined with her fated mate bond, transformed the curse into a key. She turned poison into power, chains into freedom. And they fell in love. Another student sighed romantically. They did, but more importantly, they changed the kingdom. Queen Elara's reforms made dark healing magic respected instead of feared. King Alaric's fair governance brought prosperity and peace. Together, they proved that the most powerful magic isn't light or dark. It's the magic of connection, of trust, of choosing to see the person beneath the surface. I smiled, listening from the doorway where they couldn't see me. The story had grown in the telling, become legend, but the core truth remained. Love had saved us both, in ways that went beyond physical healing. Alaric appeared beside me, slipping his hand into mine. Nostalgic. A little. This is where everything changed. Where I stopped being a lonely outcast and started becoming someone who mattered. You always mattered, he said firmly. I just helped you see it. We left the museum and returned to the palace, where our children, twins, a boy and a girl, both showing early signs of inheriting their father's shifter abilities and their mother's healing magic, were waiting for their bedtime story. Tell us about the chains again, our daughter demanded as we tucked them in. You've heard that story 100 times. I laughed. But it's the best story, our son insisted. So I told him again about the poison wolf and the feared healer, about 12 days of slow healing and building trust, about chains that were broken not by force but by love. And as I spoke, I felt Alaric's hand find mine, felt the mate bond pulse with contentment, and knew that every moment of suffering, every year of exile, every chain I'd broken had been worth it to arrive at this moment. The shadow healer had found her light. The true Alpha had found his queen. And together, we'd build a kingdom where outcasts could become heroes, where dark magic could heal, and where love could break any curse. The end.
Thank you for listening. Crescent Moon, if you loved this story of the Shadow Healer and her Alpha King, don't forget to like this video to help others find this epic romance. Subscribe for more full-length Werewolf audiobooks every week. Comment below, what was your favorite moment? The first healing scene? The curse breaking? The throne room confrontation?